Liverpool, January 1931. A quiet insurance salesman returns home from an evening chess match to find his wife brutally murdered in their own sitting room. No witnesses, no forced entry, no clear motive. And yet within days, police were convinced they had their killer. But nearly a century later, the murder of Julia Wallace remains one of Britain's greatest unsolved mysteries. This is the strange and baffling case of the Wallace murder. William Herbert Wallace was not the kind of man anyone expected to become infamous. At 52 years old, Wallace lived a modest and orderly life in Liverpool with his wife Julia. He worked as an insurance agent for the Prudential Assurance Company and was known as intelligent, polite, and intensely routine-driven. He wore neat suits, kept detailed notes, played chess regularly. To neighbours, the Wallaces appeared respectable but somewhat isolated. They had no children, few close friends, and lived quietly at 29 Wolverton Street in the district of Anfield. Some described the marriage as calm and affectionate. Others said it felt cold and distant. But no one reported violent arguments, no scandal, no obvious enemies, which made what happened on January 20th, 1931, all the more shocking. The mystery truly begins the night before the murder. On January 19th, William Wallace attended his usual chess club, the Liverpool Central Chess Club. During the meeting, a club member approached Wallace with an unusual message. A man calling himself R.M. Qualtrough had phoned asking Wallace to visit him the following evening regarding an insurance matter. The address given was 25 Menlove Gardens East. Wallace appeared puzzled but copied down the details carefully. There was just one problem. In Liverpool, Menlove Gardens had a north, south and west, but no east. At the time, nobody noticed the significance of this. But later, it would become one of the strangest details in British criminal history. The next evening, January 20th, Wallace left home shortly after 6 p.m. to find the mysterious address. Multiple witnesses later confirmed seeing him travelling across Liverpool by tram and on foot. He asked strangers for directions. He questioned police officers. He searched street after street. But of course, Menlove Gardens East did not exist. Eventually, frustrated and confused, Wallace abandoned the search and returned home around 8:45 p.m. What happened next became one of the most haunting moments in British crime history. When Wallace arrived home, he noticed something odd. The front door was locked. He knocked repeatedly but got no answer. Concerned, he asked neighbours for help. Together they eventually entered the house. Inside, the scene was horrific. Julia Wallace lay dead in the sitting room. She had been beaten savagely about the head. Blood stained the room. Furniture was disturbed. But strangely, there was no sign of forced entry. Police estimated she had been killed shortly after Wallace left the house. And almost immediately, suspicion fell upon him. To detectives, the case seemed straightforward. Who benefits most from Julia Wallace's death? Her husband. Police believed Wallace had created the mysterious Qualtrough phone call himself as part of an elaborate alibi. The theory was simple. Wallace invents a fake appointment. He leaves home, kills Julia before departing or shortly afterward, then deliberately wanders Liverpool, pretending to search for the non-existent address. Investigators also discovered there was little evidence of robbery. A small amount of cash appeared missing, but valuables remained untouched. To police, the scene looked staged. Then came another suspicious detail. The phone call to the chess club had been made from a public telephone box, located surprisingly close to Wallace's own home. This discovery convinced detectives they had their man. William Herbert Wallace was arrested and charged with murder. But almost immediately, cracks began appearing in the prosecution's case. The first issue was timing. Could Wallace physically have committed the murder and still been seen by witnesses during his journey? Some experts argued the timeline was incredibly tight. Others believed it was nearly impossible. Then there was the brutality of the attack itself. Julia had been struck repeatedly with great violence. Yet when Wallace was examined by police, there were no bloodstains on his clothes, no visible injuries, and no obvious signs he had just committed a frenzied killing. The murder weapon was never conclusively identified. And perhaps strangest of all, why would Wallace create such a bizarre and traceable alibi? The fake address was almost too strange, so strange that some investigators wondered whether someone else had engineered it specifically to frame him. The trial of William Herbert Wallace captivated Britain. Newspapers followed every twist. The prosecution argued Wallace was a cold, calculating murderer who used his intelligence to construct a clever deception. The defense countered that the entire case was based on speculation. No eyewitnesses, no confession, no direct physical evidence. Still, in April 1931, the jury found Wallace guilty of murder. He was sentenced to death by hanging. But then something remarkable happened. Wallace appealed the conviction, and in a historic decision, the Court of Criminal Appeal overturned the verdict. The judges ruled that the evidence against Wallace was insufficient and largely circumstantial. He became the first person in British legal history to have a murder conviction overturned after a successful appeal based on insufficient evidence. William Herbert Wallace walked free, legally innocent. But in the eyes of the public, the debate had only begun. For decades, investigators, writers, and criminologists have argued over the case. Did Wallace murder his wife? Or was someone else responsible? Several theories emerged. Supporters of this theory point to the fake phone call. Who else would invent such a bizarre appointment? Wallace was intelligent, methodical, and capable of planning. Some believe he simply underestimated how difficult it would be to conceal the crime. Others argue he lacked emotion after Julia's death and behaved oddly calm during questioning. But critics say the prosecution never explained how he committed such a violent murder without leaving clear evidence behind. Some investigators believed Julia may have interrupted a burglary. There were signs of disturbance in the house and some money was missing. But again, valuables remained untouched. And there was no forced entry. This theory has never fully convinced most experts. One of the most controversial theories involves another insurance agent named Richard Parry, a younger colleague of Wallace. Some researchers believe Parry may have known details about Wallace's business and routines. Decades later, suspicions grew around him due to inconsistent statements and alleged behavior after the murder. But there was never enough evidence to charge anyone else. And so the theory remains speculation. William Herbert Wallace lived for another 2 years after his release. He never remarried, never confessed, never stopped claiming innocence. He died in 1933, and with him may have died the truth about what happened inside that small Liverpool house. Nearly a century later, criminologists still debate the case. Some believe Wallace was a criminal genius who almost escaped justice. Others believe he was an innocent man trapped by coincidence, suspicion, and one extraordinarily strange phone call. But perhaps the most unsettling possibility is this: the real killer may never have been identified at all. The Wallace case remains one of the greatest unsolved murder mysteries in British history. A crime with no clear answer. A husband both guilty and innocent in the eyes of history. And a question that still echoes through Liverpool nearly 100 years later. who killed Julia Wallace,